لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Muraqaba Musawi in particular, to meditate with conscious and breath awareness, and to use the support of the breath, combining it with the sensing of our chest and feeling the expansion of the chest as we breathe in, and the movement of the chest, outwards and inwards as we breathe in and out. That I call the Muraqaba Musawi. So that's all of the instruction I will give. Right? And maybe I will say a few, as I end up kind of doing in this process. But so the intention and the orientation is just find your sit spot, to relax, bring attention to or become aware of your breath. When you feel more aligned and more present in your awareness of the breath, to begin, sensing the breath upon your chest. All right. So this process is simply the Muraqaba Musawi. Because it's a Muraqaba, we are, kind of also maintaining an awareness of God's presence as we do it. If that is too difficult for you, just first start with being present consciously, bringing awareness to the breath, riding the breath a little bit, connecting that with the sensing of your body, and in particular of the region of the chest. And feel the expansion and the contraction of the chest with every in breath and out breath. Perhaps before we do that part of the sensing of the chest, feel free to, on the in breath, notice and sense the straightening of your spine, and on the out breath, the relaxing of the spine and the chin and the shoulders on the out breath. And when you feel aligned with that, then bring your attention to the sensing of the breath around your chest, inshallah. So that will be the instruction. And then after we all reach this place, I will give more instruction. Bismillah. So we call this the Muraqaba Musawi. Bismillah. If you don't feel present, you can begin with a sensing of the space around your body. And feel free to, with the help of the breath, simply sense the spatiality of all the directions of space as it contacts your body. Bismillah. In breath, straighten the spine. And out breath, relax the spine and shoulders and neck. In breath, straighten the spine. And out breath, while the spine is still straight, relax your muscles along the alignment. As you notice all the movements of the body amidst your stillness, all the subtle movements amidst your subtle stillness, bring awareness to the field of your chest and the sensing of the breath as it expands the chest in the in breath and as it contracts the chest in the out breath. Bismillah. Stay here. In breath, feel the sensing of the expansion and stay present. And out breath, feel the movement and relax into your presence. In breath, be present. And out breath, relax into yourself, into your presence. As you relax more in the out breath into yourself, into the chest, feel your awareness here, somewhere in the middle of your chest, to almost the bottom of your chest. Feel free to put your hand there to note the sensation as you breathe in and out. Either your whole hand or a few fingers around the bottom portion of the center of your chest. Whatever feels more comfortable. Bismillah. For the in breath, perhaps hand on the chest. Feel the expansion. And for the out breath, bring the fingers into that area of the chest. get a sense of the sensing here. And in a relaxed way, bring your attention and sink it in to the center of your sense of beingness, with all this being a support for that process. Bismillah. In breath, hold hand on the chest, the whole hand on the chest. Out breath, a few of your fingers at the bottom of your chest in the center. In a relaxed way, relax your attention and sink it or allow it to sink there. Bismillah. Feel free to exaggerate the movement if need be, until in a very relaxed and in a subtle way, you may feel more of your attention sink in to the center of your sense of beingness, beyond your mind. Bismillah. If it's helpful to keep the hand on your chest, then continue to do so to get a better feel for this. Almost as if with your eyes shut and your chin slightly in a relaxed way tucked, that your imaginal gaze of attention is tending towards that center of your chest at the bottom of your chest, the center of your beingness, in a relaxed way, not in a laser focused way. Bismillah. And simply notice how this feels. For those of you who feel a relaxed sense of centeredness, a relaxed sense of your beingness, where the attention of your awareness has relaxed and turned inwards and sunk itself into your beingness. Simply feel that and know that you have entered your heart in some way. Continue the Muraqaba Musawi like this. Try to breathe in and out from this very subtle center. In other words, allow your in-breath to start from there as it expands, and allow the out-breath to return to there. as you contract. Simply take note of any subtle sensations that may or may not arise. It's all right if you're not with me. Just continue with the sensing of your breath upon your chest. But for those who are with me and those who are not, to wherever you are, I ask you now to join me in the recitation of the Wird, Shadali Wird, in a very short form, in which you invoke, you do dhikr, you perform your dhikr from that subtle center. So, in other words, the astaghfirullah should be coming from there or arriving there. Let's attempt this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خير وأعظم أجرا واستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم أستغفر الله 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 أستغفر الله. We will continue the astaghfirullah, but now in a lighter voice, almost a whisper. Try to stay here in this subtlety, in this latifa, and invoke from here the astaghfirullah in a lighter tone. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Now I ask you to invoke the remaining astaghfar with a whisper that connects with your breath. And as you reach astaghfirullah, prolong the Allah as it reaches and goes deeper into the subtlety, into the subtle center of your being, your heart, your qalb. Bismillah. أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Now imagine that the same subtle point or place has expanded, and that your salawat upon the Prophet will fill the spaciousness of this expansion. We will begin with the louder voice, and we'll do the same after each 33. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد 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 اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك نبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط. لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. لا إله إلا الله. 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 Notice the silence upon the La ilaha illallah. The contracted pointedness of the subtleness, of the subtlety of your sense of beingness with the astaghfirullah, which then expanded to a spaciousness with Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, is now experienced as a profound, subtle silence that goes beyond spaciousness into and even beyond the sense of the now that was opened by expansiveness as well, to a oneness that somehow encompasses all space and time in a very light tone. Invoke La ilaha illallah from the subtlety of this, of the silence of the heart. La ilaha illallah. 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 Invoke from the silence. Hear the silence before you hear your invocation through the silence. Now listen to the invocation of La ilaha illallah arise from the silence, as the silence. La ilaha illallah. سيدنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله. For those who are still on, who are here, looks like maybe most of you. In recap, and I'm going to open the floor for any comments about your experience. In recap, we use the Muraqaba Musawi to gather ourselves and relax ourselves, to turn more inwards in a relaxed way. Once we may have felt that we were more present there, then we began invoking from there. We began reciting the Shahadati Wird from the sensing of an awakened heart. And so we engaged the latifa of qalb as we invoked astaghfirullah, and we felt the pointedness or the centeredness of this, of the heart. And then, so you can say that we might have experienced the constant of a kind of stillness at the center there, a sense of contracted stillness with the astaghfirullah. Then, with the opening of the heart and its spaciousness, its openness, we invoked salawat upon the Prophet, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. And then finally, with the constant or the contemplative constant of noticing the subtlety of silence, we invoked with that silence La ilaha illallah. So this is what we just did. So I'll open the floor to any comments about that experience. If one was lost in it, was unable to follow the guidance instructions, or anything, I'm open to hearing from you here or elsewhere. Inshallah. Bismillah. So whoever would like to speak or to type, please feel free to. Bismillah. If you'd like to share. Bismillah, Sidi. Abdul Hakim. Alaikum salam.
Yeah, that was a really profound experience. Anyway, I mean, this is, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but you've been teaching the Muhasaba for years now. I mean, the integration of the weird, like it's like we were saying that I'm sure the realization was there from before, but the way it came out now.
I didn't point it out.
Yeah.
Uh, this was, of course, I'm attempting to communicate what I have experienced, which came naturally as an internal guidance on the adhkar, on what happens for me.
Yeah.
In the adhkar, which of course, astaghfirullah is you could say a result, but of years of invocation and taking the supreme name into into khalwa, into solitary retreat. What I've experienced of that, the little that Allah gave us, I've been attempting to communicate those states or those ahwal contemplatively. So alhamdulillah, I'm happy that you found something in that. So this was even a test run for me because I have not attempted to do a guidance like this.
Perfectly everything you're teaching, if you first sense that space, right, and then you do the istighfar, and the istighfar is asking basically for remission, or you're returning to that space.
Excellent.
And then the jalli, the jalwa, like the polishing of that space with the salawat, and then just there's just oneness.
Yes.
And then and then there's these 3 levels within the Muraqaba. So even in Hamidi and so those that would be really exciting.
Inshallah, at some point we can try to go from the Muraqaba Muhammadi to the Musawi to the Maryami, and even back out like that, because the Muraqaba Muhammadi is very comprehensive and direct, so it can be direct and comprehensive, right? So yes, basically from a meditative standpoint, the Muraqaba, so now we understand here the Muraqaba Musawi, which is using the sensing of the breath upon the chest as a contemplative support for meditation, for our awareness of God's presence, right? It can also be used as it is to just be more present in a relaxing way, in a focused, but also in a gathered and relaxed way. And so the Muraqaba Musawi is a very, I've given a specific name, but it's a very universal practice. But it aligns with the inspiration of the Quran and Islamic sources in terms of what the Prophet Moses asked God, right? In terms of the expansion of the chest. So this is why we use that. The Muraqaba Muhammadi is an immediate, opening. It's also an expansion, right? Alam nashrah laka sadrak, right? Kind of as if from within, actually, right? So there's something special about that. So it's interesting that then once we got there with the help of the Muraqaba Musawi, we got to the centeredness, this one pointedness of the astaghfar. So you mentioned space, yes, but also so that is the space of the heart, but it's as if you're using a key to unlock it. That's the astaghfar or the astaghfirullah. With the help and the support of the Muraqaba Musawi, we got there. Now the heart then opened for us. That's like alam nashrah laka sadrak, right? It may be a natural result of gathering ourselves and then it opens. And this then would be the end point of Rabbi Shrah li Sadri, right? But it's also the starting point of the Muraqaba Muhammadi. Alam nashrah laka sadrak, have we not already expanded your chest, your outer heart, your heart? And so there's an immediate awareness, an immediate recognition of God's presence in the Muraqaba Muhammadi, which can be encountered or experienced as a spaciousness, as a direct, immediate spaciousness, right? This would mean one has, even done some work, or has such strong faith in Muhammad also that just opens. This is a possibility, right, for the follower of Muhammad. That the fatah is just opening, it's just immediate, right? Because they follow, as the well-known story in Sufi circles of the companion who just saw the Prophet ﷺ and he arrived at spiritual realization and then died. Had made his way to see the Prophet, became a companion, had his fat, and died in the presence of the Prophet. So like that was all the realization. That was the whole path. His path was just much longer in reaching the Prophet, but that was his path. And once he arrived, he had arrived. He had already arrived. He had realized he had already arrived, and he's done. Right? His purpose is completed. So this is really at the heart of the essence of the Muraqaba Muhammadi. So the immediate opening. So alam nashrah laka sadrak, right? So it's interesting that we use this salawat for that spiritual expansion then of the heart, not just of the outer, kind of chest or the outer heart, but the spiritual heart. In reality, it's found to be already expanded because the heart is already a spaciousness, the spiritual heart. It's a subtle spaciousness behind our not so subtle contractions, of mind and body. So once we encounter the spiritual heart, we then recognize, subhanAllah, that this is a whole new space. And we can touch this experientially. Once we go there, it's as if we're awakened to something that was always there, but it's just expansive. That's an entrance by the permission of Allah into the spiritual heart, right? You can say the qalb itself as the spiritual heart, right? We can use more technical terms, but we can say that. So, alam nashrah laka sadrak, right? Then you have la ilaha illallah, which is an encountering. So there's a sense of, before we go to la ilaha illallah, there's a sense of openness here in the spiritual heart connected with the Muhammadan heart. It's kind of just a sense of openness, pervasive and immediate openness. In La ilaha illallah, there's a shift to the subtlety of the ever-present silence that's always been there in the background, but now is more noticeable. And it's not only in the background, it pervades everything. So without being perturbed or disturbed by anything. That's the silence. That's the pure oneness of the presence of Allah, His pure oneness. In effect, it's always present. From another point of view, nothing can be present with it. Right? So it is transcendent in its immanence and immanent in its transcendence. La ilaha illallah. This is what contemplatively we connect with as the pure silence of God's oneness, of God's presence. La ilaha illallah. So this is what we did. And to come back, so we have the Muraqaba Muhammadi that you can say is more immediate. When we use it as an immediate sense of awareness of Allah, it is connected with the forehead, right? Because there's an immediate awareness of God. It's not mental, but it's still spiritual, but it's connected with the forehead. It's a pure awareness. When, with the help of the breath and the Muraqaba Musawi, we sink this into our heart, then there's another kind of opening that happens. And this is the combination, one can say, of the Muraqaba Musawi and the Muhammadi. When we use conscious breathing in meditation practice and align it with the abdomen as a kind of diaphragmatic breathing, which is a kind of conscious breath work. This, in the Islamic spiritual sense, I call the Muraqaba Maryami, the sacred womb, connecting with the sacred womb that gave birth to Jesus, to Sayyidina Isa, to the Prophet Isa, to prophecy, right, to realization. So it's a kind of subtle embodiment of presence. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the three muraqabas as supports that can be used in the meditation process, if that makes any sense. But we cycled in the wird. We touched a one-pointedness, and then an open spaciousness, and then an all-pervasive silence, subtle silence, which is pure oneness. Does that make sense? So I used the connection of the supports to enhance the meaning and the reality of the dhikr. But that's what it is, actually. That's what it points to, and that's what it is. Um, in connection to the human body, in connection to the regions of the body, or you could say the levels of the heart. Right? We went from outer heart to inner heart to a more subtle heart.
Yeah, I think I had always wondered why the Prophet wasn't the highest level. But I think the the way that you explained it is that like that makes it make sense because the Moroccan Muhammadi's presence as such, it's the presence of God without any application, which is why it's the center. This is why it's beyond levels because it's just pure presence.
Yes.
But then but like with the Moroccan Musawi, you try to enter into it. And then with the Muraqaba Maryam, you try to
expand it. Yeah, you try to expand it. You try to embody it. So it's all Muhammadi. The Muraqaba Muhammadi is encountered here. The Muraqaba Musawi is not encountered here. The Muraqaba Musawi is encountered here on the chest. Right? So if the Muraqaba Muhammadi is encountered here on the forehead as a pure knowing, as a pure spiritual knowing, a recognition of oneness, right? Of God's presence, of His immediacy. We first register it if you've encountered it or if you tasted it. The Muraqaba Musawi does not start here. Rather, it starts here in the expansion and sensing of the chest. As the attention gathers and begins to sink into the center beyond the outwardness of the chest, the Muraqaba Musawi, awakens to a Muraqaba Muhammadi. So the Muraqaba Muhammadi is here and here. Now, since this is at the bottom element of the chest and the center of one's beingness, which anatomically is the xiphoid process, right? And there's other names for this, the solar plexus, right, or other names. This is at the apex of the sacred womb, right, which is the beginning of the practice of cultivating that realization as embodiment. So the Muraqaba Maryam, what are you embodying? The Muhammadan presence of realization into your being, into your relative being. So from this angle, this is how that would work. So at every level or stage, there's Muhammad, but only in a specific area or place, there's the other prophet. Right? So this is the singularity and the comprehensiveness of the Muhammadan presence in the Islamic spiritual practice of this matter.
Just like every prophet
yes
comes out.
Yes. Yes, yes. As the Sufis say, right, that every prophet is Ahmad. Is the inner reality of Muhammad manifesting in a particular time in the name of Adam, in the name of Noah, in the name of so forth, and Abraham and Moses, etc. It's really amazing when you look at this, culminating then in the fullness, in the relative expression of time and space of Muhammad, who was always Ahmad, inwardly and metaphysically, and also in heaven, right? As Sayyidina Isa calls him even in the Bible by the name Ahmad, or by a name that corresponds to Ahmad more than Muhammad, which is in Islamic teachings the known spiritual name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allahu alam. So that's so much more can be said about that. But thank you very much. Barakallahu feek, and we will end here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal 'asr. Innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله إلا الله